Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. While I wait for you all to sign on, just saying hi. Just want to wish everyone a happy new year. And thank you so much for joining today's Inspiration Wednesday webinar. I hope your new year is off to a wonderful start. Now, for those of you who do not know me, I am Christy Callahan. I am the Director of Marketing here. And as you know, today's topic is Conquering the Title Explorer, the secret to mastering the world's best authoring tool. And indeed, this one feature is hands down the most important tool for developing content quickly and efficiently within Lectora Inspire, Lectora Online, and Lectora Publisher. Our fantastic speaker today is Laura Silver, and she's the perfect person to cover this topic. Not only is she the Chief Operating Officer of Trivantis, but she is also Head of Product Management and has the awesome nickname of Laura Lectora. Yay! So first, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm going to launch a quick poll over here. Can everyone see my screen, I hope? I want to know, how long have you been using Lectora? And let's see here. Let's see what we've got. Well, there's some people who've never tried it. I've only used less awesome products. Okay, well, we're hopefully going to change that. Not long. I'm on the free. Oh, did I not launch the poll? Oh, my apologies. Here we go. It's on the screen. Yep. Okay, can everyone see that? I'm seeing some yeses, yes. Oh, good, oh, good. Wow, we've got people who've used Lectora for 13 years. From Lori Taylor, that's fantastic. Wow, awesome to see. We've got some people using it less than a year, 1 to 3, over 3, forever. I still have my Lectora lunchbox. Quick history lesson here. This is like a little history walk in the park. Back in the day, Lectora came in these little CD-ROM type of hard install packages, and they got delivered in lunch boxes. So you can sort of see like a progression over the timeline. Kind of exciting. And little teaser alert, there are new lunch boxes coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, let's see if we're done getting some questions. Let's end the poll, and I'm going to share some results. Okay. Wow, we've got a lot of people that are using the software for Lectora for at least 3 years. That's great, about half of you. And then some of you are newer to that, so that's pretty good to know. So before I turn it over to our wonderful speaker today, let me just end that. Okay, just want to let you know that throughout the presentation, please feel free to ping us with questions, but just so you know, we'll probably cover most of them later in the session. And rest assured, yes, I will be sending a link to this video tomorrow. So you can revert back to it at any time and share it with all your colleagues. Okay, so that being said, I would like to turn it over to you, Laura. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my share and let you jump in here.
Great, thank you so much, Christy, for the welcome, and thanks everybody for joining. I am sharing my screen. Hopefully everybody can see that and everyone can hear me okay.
Oh, I can hear you. It seems like
Right.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Can everyone see Laura's screen yet? Says can't see your screen. Yes. Okay. People see your screen. Little lag time.
All right.
I love that.
Perfect. I'll make sure to remember to go slow. So today we're going to talk about conquering the title explorer, which for me is a topic I really like talking about because I think this is what is going to propel you if you are having problems really mastering Lectora, or if you want to propel yourself from a beginner to intermediate or an advanced user. This is where the secrets all lie. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll switch between this PowerPoint presentation that you're looking at, as well as working within Lectora. So let's start with some famous quotes. This first quote comes from Yogi Berra, who says, "If you don't know where you are going, you might wind up someplace else." So hopefully you've all heard this one before. And then I've got a new one for you. If you don't know where you are in the Title Explorer, you will wind up building something else. And so I feel pretty strongly about this one. I've probably sat through now in the past 13 years with the company, maybe 100 training classes, fundamentals, intermediate, and had the wonderful opportunity of meeting a lot of new users of Lectora. And I've seen some really funky things happen right here in the Title Explorer. And I feel like if I can help you become more comfortable and adept at using your Title Explorer, you're going to build better courses. This is really the key to becoming a Lectora whiz. When you conquer the Title Explorer, you're going to be able to move beyond a novice user, develop content more quickly, and really reduce the amount of frustration and issues that you encounter. This should really become second nature, almost like driving a car. You know, when you are about to make a left turn, you slow down, you put on the brakes, you put on your blinker, you look left, you look right, you look left again, and then you turn. And most of the time, you don't even think about all those things that you're doing, and it just happens, and all of a sudden you've made that left turn. And that's how I want working with the Title Explorer to be for all of you. That before you add an object, you collapse the objects that you're not using, you make sure you select the page that you're on, you select the object that you want the object to be layered after or before, you rename your objects, and you're not even thinking about anything. It's all just beautiful second nature. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's go back to the basics, make sure we're really all on the same page. We're going to cover layering order, naming your objects, some tricks around inheritance, visibility settings, title organization, reordering your pages and objects, and more. So first, let's talk about the book metaphor. If you use Lectora, then hopefully you understand that Lectora calls your courses or anything, they call them your titles. That's just the name we use. So any of the content that you create with Lectora is referred to as a title. It could be your project, your course, your module, your CBT, whatever that might be. And we use a book metaphor. And so every title is structured like a book. And because like the Title Explorer, as you can see here in this screenshot, displays the entire structure of your title, understanding that book metaphor, again, is going to help you really master using the Title Explorer. So the book metaphor just helps you create an organized hierarchy of content. I always like to remind everyone that doesn't mean that it's linear in nature. You can skim through a book just like you can skim through a course and skip from chapter to chapter or section. That's just how we organize our content. And for me, being organized when I'm creating my content and my courses helps me tremendously be more productive and really focus on getting good content together. So you're going to build your title structure using chapters, sections, and pages. The title, again, represents the overall course or book, and then the course contains your chapters, sections, subsections, and pages. And that's how you're going to build out your title structure. And then the pages are really the physical pages your end users, your learners actually see, while the chapters and sections provide a means of organizing those pages. If you are publishing to SCORM or AICC and you're taking advantage of assignable units, AUs, or SCOs, then all of that content gets wrapped up into an assignable unit, and you can have multiple assignable units that contain chapters, sections, and pages. And we'll look at that in just a minute. So let's just take a look at this course here so you can kind of get familiar with the sample course that I'm using here. So this is called Fire Extinguisher Basics, just a basic course. This is set up as a SCORM course, so you can see that I have my SCO here named Fire Extinguisher Basics that I've selected in my Title Explorer. Between this AU or this SCO and the title level that I'm now selecting are a number of objects that are listed in the Title Explorer. And those are all at the title level. And we'll talk about inheritance in just a minute, but those are all going to get inherited down to the chapters, sections, pages, as well as assignable units within your courses. then we get to the AU level, or assignable unit, which is just technically when you're publishing to SCORM, that's just the package that you upload that represents an individual course in your learning management system. So if I were to publish this course with multiple SCOs or assignable units, they would represent multiple modules or courses in my LMS. That's a topic for a different day. So we'll focus on the Title Explorer today. And you can notice here that I have some pages that are outside of a chapter, which is fine. I have some chapters, and some of my chapters have pages within them. You could add sections to these if you want. And then my quiz here is just a special kind of chapter, which just means that the questions within them are graded when you submit the test or quiz. And so that's really how my course here is organized. And by keeping my course organized in chapters and sections, just helps me keep a better handle on my course development. And again, just makes me more productive. So understanding the book metaphor really is step one to using the Title Explorer. They go hand in hand. Next up are just understanding your object names or your chapter section page names as well. So the list of the items that you have in your Title Explorer, that just represents all the chapters, sections, and pages in your title, along with all of those object names. Because you are going to use your Title Explorer throughout your entire development process, you want to make sure that those objects are named in a way that are meaningful to you, that they're descriptive, that when you close this course and you come back again, maybe in a year to update it on an annual basis, you're not trying to remember what text block 1 means or image 3 means or a file name. So I always recommend that you come in and you rename these objects. Rename the pages. Everything here should mean something to you when you're looking at it in the Title Explorer. It will help you find it more quickly and spend less time being frustrated or lost. So remember, whenever you select an item in the Title Explorer on the left, it's going to select that object on the page and actually bring it into focus so that I can see it, so that if it was layered behind another object, it would bring it into focus so that I could see it. And it's also going to make the properties for that object available as well. So when you double click on an object, it will actually bring the properties up for you, but it also just makes it available when you single select. So again, what I'm working with in the Title Explorer is represented on the page and vice versa. If I select an object on the page, it's going to highlight that object for you in the Title Explorer, and your object properties are also going to be available as well. If you rename an object in the Title Explorer, then the name of that object is going to be renamed here within that object's properties ribbon and vice versa. And if you are if you are building a course to be accessible and your learners are using assistive technology, then the name of that object represents the alternative text or the object name that gets announced and recognized by a screen reader. And we'll talk more about renaming objects in a little while. So again, if I come here and let's say I'm looking at this quiz page, let me expand the quiz page by selecting the little plus icon to the left of it. And you can see I have a number of actions, shapes, text blocks, and even a button. So if I select this button here in my Title Explorer, it highlights it on the page, brings it into focus so I can rotate it, flip it, resize it, reposition it, whatever I want to do. And then it also makes that button properties available. Some of this might be familiar to you if you've been using Lectora. Certainly if you've been using Lectora for since you've had a lunchbox, this might be common knowledge, but I just think it's important to remember all of this. And I think you'll still learn some new things today because there's always something new that you can learn in Lectora. I honestly learn something new every week. So just a nice little refresher on object names. And again, really the main lesson here is to remember to use descriptive names. All right, so let's talk next about inheritance, which I think is one of the most interesting and unique features of Lectora, really one of the biggest time savers. And those chapter sections and pages really work hand in hand with Lectora's inheritance principle. As you're going to work in the Title Explorer, that inheritance principle is going to play a huge part. So objects that you add just to the page will appear only on that page. And then, of course, objects that you add to a chapter or a section, like we're looking at this progress bar here in the Title Explorer in this screenshot, that's at the assignable unit level. So it's going to show up on all the chapter sections and pages within the assignable unit. And now if I'm looking at this resources button, that's at the chapter level. It's going to get displayed or inherited onto all of the chapter or all of the sections and pages within the FIRES chapter. You can always disinherit or exclude certain items within the properties of that chapter, sections, or page. There's a reason why I bring up inheritance. What I often find is if I'm looking at this quiz page, what's really nice about it is I can see everything that's gotten inherited onto that page, as well as all of the objects that are specific to this page. But what might happen is I'm looking at the quiz page and I realize that I want to do something unique to this sound button, and I select it. So now it's selected on my quiz page. But if I really look over here at my Title Explorer, am I on the page level? Trick question. No, I am on the title level. So anything that I do to this button to change it, to change its properties, to change its appearance, that change will get inherited to all of the pages within my course. So that's issue number one that I often see happen with new users of the product. Issue number two is I still think I'm on this page and I'm busy developing content, changing around the buttons that I think it's only impacting this page. And then I say, okay, now I need another text block on the page, and I go to the insert ribbon and I add my text block. Well, oftentimes, if I'm at the title level, that text block might get added to the title level and not to that specific page. And so now I've added a text block to all the pages in my course and not just to that specific page. So I find that when I am working on a page, keeping an eye on what I have selected in the Title Explorer and understanding inheritance really makes a big difference. And so that's why I always like to bring up the concept of inheritance as it relates to the Title Explorer. All right, and so then the last major concept here is layering order. And the Title Explorer is really the means to control the layering of overlapping objects on a page. The way that objects are layered in Lectora is based on their listed position in the Title Explorer. So an object that appears at the topmost position on this list of objects in the Title Explorer is actually on the bottommost layer of the page. So this says black BG. That represents a shape called black background. And that black background is on the bottom layer. Next, we see the object rectangle. That represents this blue rectangle. Then we see ellipse. There's a little a black ellipse shape underneath the dart icon. And then we see icon, which is the dart icon, and then title, which is this text block. So think about it really like a deck of cards. The last card goes on top of the deck, on top of all of the other cards. Or just think about layering order like loading order. That's how I think about it. So when your page gets loaded on the web, wherever you're launching it from, the first thing that's going to load up is that black background, then the rectangle, then the ellipse, then the icon, then the title. And so the title will be on top. Remember, screen readers will identify objects on a page in the order from top to bottom that they are listed in the Title Explorer. So it's going to first read out black background if the alt text is available for it, then rectangle, and so on. So now let's throw in inheritance when we talk about this. And let me pull up my sample title again. Let's take a look at this course navigation page, or maybe let's take a look at this fire extinguisher basics page. Yes, I have my objects right here on the page. I have a background image that's underneath my icon and my text and my other set of text. But all of the objects that are at the title level, at the assignable unit level or at the chapter level get inherited down. And so those are going to get layered underneath them. Layering order and inheritance are also going to affect your tabbing order. So objects that are inherited, as we just learned, are always layered on the bottommost layer of the page in which they are inherited. So really, again, looking at the Title Explorer is your key here to layering order. It's your key to tabbing order. It's your key to working with Lectora, right? So consider a page that inherits objects both from the title level and the chapter level. Again, that web page is first going to load those inherited title level objects from top to bottom, then the chapter level objects from top to bottom, and then finally the page level objects. So the first thing that would get loaded would be any shapes, images, and objects at my title level, then the progress bar, then the resources button, and then everything at my page level. Now, before you get overwhelmed by layering order and tabbing order and inheritance, just remember layering really only matters in a couple of instances. Number one, if you're creating accessible 508 compliant or WCAG courses, then absolutely. Layering and tabbing order really does matter because that's how screen readers are going to announce your title and other assistive technology. But other than that, if you have objects that are overlapping and you're maybe hiding or showing certain objects at a time or just layered in a unique way, then yeah, then layering matters. But if I'm looking at this page here, for example, and I have, text here, something over here, and they're not really, overlapping on each other. If you just have text and image on a page, it doesn't really matter where they're layered. So don't get over concerned. But I just want to make sure to bring it up and that everyone understands that the Title Explorer, again, is really the key to controlling this, to manipulating it, to keeping it all organized. There's one other place where layering matters, and that's when it comes to actions. Because let's take a look at this, this action group, for example, up here at the top, next glow. Lectora will run the actions in the order that they're listed in the Title Explorer. So first it would do that hide action, then it would do the show action. So if I have an action group, or let's say I have a button with 5 actions attached to it, I want 5 things to happen or trigger when I select or click the button, then that order in which the actions are listed in the Title Explorer does matter. That's the order in which they'll be triggered. So that's hopefully a takeaway for some of you who may not have known that. Hopefully you're all learning something a little bit new today. When we're thinking about layering order and we're thinking about the Title Explorer, I also encourage you to take advantage of the Arrange panel on the home ribbon. And this is a nice way to also better understand how layering works as you play with that Arrange panel. So I've got my sample title up. I'm going to select the home ribbon. And over here towards the far right is that Arrange panel. And that's where I have bring forward and send backward. So let's take this gradient background, which right now is at the bottommost layer. If I were to say bring to front, keep an eye on my Title Explorer, what happens? Well, that gradient shape just went from being listed first to being listed last. And we know that now that we know about layering order, we know it. We just went from being on the bottom to being on the top. And if I were to use that Arrange panel or even my right-click menu, it's available there as well, and say send to back, now it gets listed as the first object in my Title Explorer. So take advantage of the Arrange panel as you're thinking about layering and look and see where everything is placed in your Title Explorer as you move things forward and backward on the page, because you're going to see that their order in the Title Explorer moves as well. And again, keep in mind that if you can't find an object on the page, if you're just looking over here on the page and you know that you added that text block or you have that image and you just can't find it, again, select it in the Title Explorer so that it'll come into focus on the page. And then note if it's layered underneath an object and then simply relayer it as necessary. All right, so we've talked about layering and tabbing order. I want to talk a little bit about just different ways of manipulating the actual pane, actually manipulating the Title Explorer as you're working in the product itself. So first, let's just talk quickly about the thumbnail view. Over here on the left, we have our Title Explorer, but I can also select this tab called Thumbnail View. And this is going to present me with a really nice view of different thumbnails of the pages in my course. So if I'm searching through a large number of pages and I really want to visually identify a specific page, I have the ability to do that. And in the thumbnail view, you can select pages and add objects and perform other functions. But keep in mind, it's really not meant to be your primary tab used in the left-hand pane. I like to think of it as an aid, but when I'm developing my course, I very rarely use it. I keep my Title Explorer open really at all times. Number two is the ability to resize the pane. Depending on the real estate of your screen, there's no reason that you have to have your Title Explorer looking like this. And there's no reason why you can't have it all the way out here. Look at all of that real estate that I have. So if I have long page names or long object names, you can resize this pane and make it as wide or as narrow as you need it to be so that you don't have to deal with a horizontal scroll bar. There's really no need for a horizontal scroll bar depending on your monitor, your page size, your resolution. So just go ahead and widen that pane as much as possible. Also, keep in mind, if you want to, you can undock this pane entirely. I can move it over here if I'm more comfortable having it on be a right-hand pane. I can move it to the bottom. If I have a second monitor, I can move it over to my other monitor. So I can really put this wherever I want. If you're having some issues and you're finding that your view might have gotten a little bit wonky or somehow you've lost your Title Explorer, there's a magic button for that. So go to your View ribbon and select Reset Layout. And that's just going to reset all of your panes, move them back to their default position. Another thing that you can do is just double click on the pane itself on Title Explorer, and that'll also move it back to its default position. So between the thumbnail view, the ability to resize your pane, and the ability to move or reset the pane wherever you want it to be, you should be able to at all times have a really good view of your Title Explorer and not worry about scrolling and things of that nature. Because as you're going to hear me say a few times, you just really want to make sure you know where you are so you know what you're building. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some other things that we can do when we're working with the Title Explorer. We'll talk about adding, selecting, and renaming objects, some options and settings, some shortcuts for adding structure, reordering your pages and objects, things like drag and drop, and then some of your right-click menu options. Okay, so when you add an object, it's important to remember that Lectora will always add the object directly underneath the current object you have selected. So if you have a group selected, then that object will be added to the group. If you have a question selected, this one's a bit of an exception since you can't add items to a question group, then that object's just going to get added directly underneath the question and will not be part of the question. If you have a form selected and add a form object, it'll go into the form group. If you have an object selected, like a button or a text block or an image or a shape, and you add an action, that action will then get attached to that object, and the triggers that are available to you will be dependent on that object. So if I have my page selected here in the Title Explorer, and I go to the Insert ribbon and select to add an action, it will add it to the page. If I look at my triggers here, then I'll have triggers like when the page is shown or hidden, when I use a keystroke action or rotate my device. Those are the triggers that are available to me because that's what I can do on a page. But if I select a text block or an image, and then I go to my Insert ribbon and select to add an action, now if I look at my trigger dropdown, I've got a couple of new things here. I have on mouse click, mouse enter, mouse exit, or right mouse click. So those are all things that I can do to trigger an action with that specific object or image. So I'm not going to see my on keystroke trigger. If I have an action on my page, I won't see that mouse enter trigger. And then keep in mind, if I Back to inheritance, if I'm at the title level and I add an object here, it's going to end up on all of my pages. So if you can't figure out why you're seeing an image or text on multiple pages, just check your title, chapter, or section levels. And just remember that if you want to know where you're going, right, just like Yogi Bear said, think about where you are. So before you add anything new to your course, to your title, make sure you take a look and see what you have physically selected in your Title Explorer, and then you'll always know whatever you're adding, where it's going to end up. So just be careful with your selection and with your adding. That's going to reduce a lot of headaches and frustration building your courses in Lectora. So be careful when you're selecting your objects in the Title Explorer. If you click this object name and the object is already selected, then it goes into what's called an edit mode so that you can easily rename the object. You may think that you're really trying to double click it to select the object and bring up its properties, but then you end up actually in edit mode in the Title Explorer, and then you're typing and you're actually busy changing the name of the object instead. And that's something that I can see happening sometimes, just dependent on how sensitive your mouse click is, the way that you have your mouse settings set up. So just something to be aware of. You select it once, you've brought it into view, you select it again, now you can edit it. But if you're having issues double clicking an object in the Title Explorer, the trick there is really just click on the icon rather than the text. So you can see that for every object in the Title Explorer, there's an icon that indicates what kind of object it is. If I just double click on the object, then the properties ribbon for that object will come up automatically rather than double clicking on the text, which often just brings me into edit mode for that. Also thinking about selecting objects. Keep in mind that if you add a section to a section, you're going to end up in a subsection, and you might end up in a bit of an infinite loop. So let me show you what I mean by that. Down here, I'm going to go to the home ribbon, and I'm going to add a chapter. Okay. So I have chapter 5 selected. Now I'm going to add a section. And page 1 of section 1 is selected. And now I want to add another section to chapter 5. Well, I selected add section, but I had page 1 of section 1 already selected. What I ended up doing was creating a subsection. And I could do that on and do it all day, and it could get a little frustrating. So make sure you go back up to your chapter level and then add a section so that it gets added as an actual section to your chapter. And that's just, again, another reminder of thinking about what you have selected in your Title Explorer before you go ahead and add anything new. One more trick here when you're thinking about selecting something. If you have a group of objects, so let's see, my navigation elements here, see how I've got them all selected here at the bottom when I select that group. If I move one thing in a group, it's going to move all of the things in the group. If I just want to move an individual object within a group, then I'm going to hold down the Alt key. So you'll have to trust me that I'm holding down the Alt key on my keyboard, and I'm going to select this exit button, and now I can move it individually. See, so adding and selecting, important when it comes to working with the Title Explorer, working with the objects on your page. Just having those tricks and principles in mind are going to save you a lot of time. So I showed you that when you want to rename an object on a page, that's when you click on the name in the Title Explorer or click on again. Of course, you can also go to its properties and change it within the name field here. I have a shortcut that I really love to use. I love a good keyboard shortcut. I don't know about you, but I always use the F2 shortcut to change names in the Title Explorer. And we'll talk about some of my other favorite keyboard shortcuts in a minute. But what I can do is, and you'll have, again, trust me that I'm selecting F2, change the name here, and then I can click enter, and that's going to take me out of edit mode and submit that name change for me. So I do like a good keyboard shortcut, and F2 is one of my favorites. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some options and settings just in terms of how your Title Explorer looks and some things that you can do to it. There are two options in your preferences that will affect the functions that are available to you in the Title Explorer. You can get to your preferences by selecting the File ribbon and selecting Lectora Preferences. And on the General tab, there's two top checkboxes or options right here. One says Show Buttons for Hiding Objects in the Title Explorer. Those are another way of saying visibility settings or visibility checkboxes. This should be on by default. If it got turned off, you can just turn it right back on. So show buttons for hiding objects in the Title Explorer, and then show visibility checkboxes in the Title Explorer, two separate options here. So let me talk about what they mean. Show buttons for hiding objects in the Title Explorer. That is this little minus sign right here at my title level. If I select it, that is going to now hide these objects at the Title Explorer. So you can imagine your Title Explorer can get pretty long. You can have a lot of scrolling. I like to really collapse anything that I'm not currently working with so that I can really keep things organized. So whenever I'm at a title, chapter, or section level, if there are multiple objects at that level, I can actually expand and collapse them. So let's see if I were here at this fires chapter as well, and I had a couple of multiple objects, then that expand and collapse icon becomes available to me at the chapter level as well. So that's what it's going to do. It's not going to change anything that gets published out. It's not going to affect your published course or in any way. It's just an organizational tool for you to have to help keep things organized in your Title Explorer. And then you have these visibility checkboxes. So to the left of the icons of all of your objects within your Title Explorer, you'll find these little visibility icons. If I clear it, then it's hidden on the page. I can't see it. So again, this is just an organizational tool. Suppose you have two hyperlinks on a page that are displaying the definitions of words. And you might want those definitions to appear in the same place on the page, but again, only once the user has clicked on that hyperlink. So if you have a click to reveal interaction on your page and you have some objects that are layered directly on top of each other, it's really useful, I think, for layered objects or for groups of objects to be able to turn this on and off. And so it doesn't affect the outcome of your title or your functionality when you're viewing it in run or preview mode. Again, it's just an organizational tool for you to have those visibility icons so you can turn off the visibility of things if you're working with a lot of objects on the page at the same time. Again, just to keep things organized and clear, and you're not mistakenly selecting an object or thinking you have to move it out of the way and then move it back and remember where it was. No need for that. Just use those visibility checkboxes. I showed you how you could use those expand and collapse buttons at the chapter, title, and section level, but it's a good reminder that you can use them everywhere, and certainly I know that I do. I'm always trying to keep things organized, and if I'm not working on a particular page, there's no need to have all of those pages expanded at that same time. A couple of shortcuts here. If you are busy building out your course and you have tons and tons of pages that you're adding or chapters or sections, just to speed up your development, just want to note that add chapter, section, and page icons here are just shortcuts for doing the same thing on the home ribbon. So there's often more than one way to do something in Lectora, and they all have keyboard shortcuts associated with them as well, which you can find if you hover right over them. So in that hover text, you'll see Control-1 is the keyboard shortcut for adding a chapter, Control-2 for a section, and Control-3 for a page. You also have the ability to customize those keyboard shortcuts if you want to, but 1, 2, and 3 works well for me. All right, so let's talk then about reordering your pages and your objects. And this is another place where I see a lot of frustration can occur when folks are dragging and dropping within the Title Explorer. So you can drag and drop in your Title Explorer to reorganize your title. You can also cut, copy, and paste objects, chapters, sections, and pages within your Title Explorer as well. So when you are dragging and dropping, The trick here is to look for that line. Do you see that black line that has been displayed? That indicates to me exactly where your object will end up. So right now I know that if I were to take this fires chapter and drop it here, it's going to be placed after the recap chapter. If I were to place it there, it would be right after safety practices. So that line, if you go slow, that line is going to tell you exactly where things are going to end up. Things can get difficult if I'm moving pages and it looks like it's going to go into a chapter or section, for example. So let's take this quiz results page. As I'm dragging and dropping, you can see that I don't see the line and I have that quiz chapter highlighted. That's going to tell me that when I let go, the quiz results page is going to get placed into the quiz chapter. Now that I see the line, it lets me know it's going to get placed after the quiz page. So look for the line. If you don't see the line, then that's going to let you know that it might not get to where you want it to go. But I think that really the easiest way to move objects and pages is just the good old cut and paste, right? Just you can right click or use your keyboard shortcuts or use the clipboard buttons here on the home ribbon. Select X, to cut, and then Control V to paste. And just make sure, again, because now you know that whatever you have selected in the Title Explorer, that's where it's going to get placed is directly below it. This really makes sure that you have full control over exactly where everything is going to go. So the drag and drop requires a little bit of mouse precision, but the cut and paste is really a surefire way to go. And then remember that you also have access to the right click menu. I think it's really just a nice thing to have because if you're really busy working in your Title Explorer on your page and you don't want to go back and forth between working in the Title Explorer, then moving up to your properties, then going back to the Title Explorer, then going over to your home ribbon, just having the right click menu is just a nice shortcut. So if you right click on anything in the Title Explorer on your page, you get a number of options here. Again, that expand and collapse, expand all and collapse all is a really nice shortcut for being organized. You can also select groups. If you have more than one thing selected, you can have the ability to group them. If you select more than one grouped object, you can ungroup them. This is again where you also have access to some of those layering options that we saw on that arrange panel, like bring to front, send to back, up one layer or down one layer. Make sure you know that there are two really, really important shortcuts here in your right click menu. One is copy to my library, which is your own personal media library. So if you have an image, an icon, a stock photography, something that you're going to want to reuse from course to course, then go ahead and save it to your My Library. If you have a page, an interaction, a chapter, a template, anything that you like that you want, again, to be able to reuse, you can save it as a library object. And then you can even export it and share it with your colleague. And then also you have the option to go ahead and insert something new. So this new option here will start to expand and you can add some additional objects. So again, you don't have to go back up to your home ribbon or insert ribbon, for example. It just helps you stay clear where you are. So again, you don't have to accidentally get to the title level and remember, I really wanted to be at the page level. You don't have to move your mouse at all, which I think is nice. Okay, so we talked about adding, selecting, and renaming objects, some of those options and settings that you have in your preferences and how they work and what you can use them for. Adding structure, just some of those shortcuts. Reordering your pages and objects, whether by drag and drop or by cut, copy, and paste. And then some of your right-click menu options. And then the last thing that I want to talk about are just a couple of good keyboard shortcuts, because again, I just love a good keyboard shortcut. I highly recommend them. So a couple more I'll share with you. So if you are working in your Title Explorer, let's go to a new page so we can look at something fun. And you want to select more than one object. If those objects are listed one after the other, just hold down your Shift key on your keyboard and you can start to select multiple objects. When multiple objects are selected, you can actually change their properties all at the same time. So that's a nice thing too. If you want to select objects that are not listed one after the other, then just use your control key. So now I can select this, and then I can select that. And again, you can see that I have multiple objects selected up here in my ribbon, and I could change the common properties between them as well. So Shift or Control to select multiple objects. You can use your keyboard's page up and page down keys just to quickly navigate between pages in your title. So page up takes you to the previous page, and you can see it's starting to expand the chapter since it wasn't previously expanded, and it'll expand the page as well. And page down takes me to the next page listed below it in my Title Explorer. I can use the up and down arrows to move up and down from object to object within my Title Explorer. And then my right and left buttons will expand and collapse. So I'm selecting my right arrow to expand this drop zone 3 group, and my left arrow to collapse it. So it's just a nice way of being able to use my keyboard to keep things organized, easier to find, and go through them more quickly in my Title Explorer. And I told you about F2 to rename an object, and there's another one, Control 3, to add a page. But let's see what happens when you combine them. So let's see, I'm down here at the bottom of completion certificate. This is just the end of my Title Explorer. I'm going to select Control 3 to add a page. I am in edit mode. I can change the name. Enter, Control 3. I can select F2. So if I am adding 100 pages and I want to quickly go between them, add pages and change the names, I don't even have to leave my keyboard or switch between my keyboard and my mouse. Again, I just find that keyboard shortcuts are a really nice productivity enhancer. So between keyboard shortcuts and your right-click menu, remembering to resize your pane and thinking about some of those principles, hopefully you've learned 1 or 2 tricks that you can take away with you today. So I'm just going to wrap up, and then we have plenty of time for asking and answering some questions that haven't been answered. So again, just remember the basics, know where you are, stay organized, and customize the pane for you. And I promise you, as soon as you get a handle on the Title Explorer, you're going to become a Lectora whiz, and you will immediately be able to do more sophisticated things and have a lot more fun building your content and a lot less time figuring out where you are in your course and what you just did.
Well, that was awesome, Laura. Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. So what do you think? You want to start tackling them? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start up here with a portrait blocker object? I've seen it in several templates. What do we use it for?
Yeah, let's go through them. All right, so this is just, this template was taken from our partners, the eLearning Brothers. And there's 2 ways of doing things. Sometimes, let's say you're building a responsive course and you only want it to be built and viewed in a landscape mode. What they've done is they added a text block that just said, this is better viewed in landscape mode. Another thing that you can do that was released a couple versions ago is you can just turn these off. And so that you don't actually have to develop for every responsive view and orientation. So that's all it means. It means that if Lectora can recognize when you rotate your screen, and you can have an action that just displays a particular text block that says, hey, this course is better viewed in a specific orientation. And that's what that means.
Yes, yes. And Darren asked, what's a character limit for a Lectora published page to load in a browser? We've used long object page names, and it's caused an error where the file object page name is too long once posted to HTML or LMS SCORM.
It's a pretty long page limit. I don't have the answer right off the top of my head, but I would have to check. But I also know that it gets appended to title, chapter, section, and page names. So that can get really, really long. But then there is also an option when you're publishing to any web-based mode that says convert page names to short ID-based names. So you aren't faced with that issue in your learning management system. So right here, when you're publishing to SCORM, HTML, any web-based option, you'll see an option that says convert page names to short ID-based names. And that way you won't run into that problem in your LMS.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that idea. Um, Nora asked, actually, will a screen reader read aloud the object type in addition to the object name?
It just depends. Your screen readers or assistive technology will typically recognize the kind of object it is. So for example, if it's an image, it knows it's an image. If it's a button, it'll know it's a button. And if it's a hyperlink, it'll know it's a hyperlink. So what you can do, which is nice, depending on what kind of screen reader or assistive technology you're using, you can pull up a list of links, list of hyperlinks and read them. Or tab through all of the H1 headings in your course, which is a way to mark your text blocks and things of that nature. So object type is typically understood, but you want to just have them named in a nice descriptive way.
Good idea. And then it says, can I have quiz questions within each chapter, or do they have to all be in the same chapter?
Quiz questions can go absolutely anywhere you want, which is something really awesome about Lectora questions. So if you want to have a standard traditional graded test, you absolutely can. If you want to have a pre-test and a post-test, you can do that too. Or if you want to have standalone questions or knowledge checks placed throughout your entire course, you can put them there as well. Because Lectora has variables, you're able to capture what your student answered within the variable of the question, and you can track that throughout your entire course, and then you can set your score at the end if you want. So you don't even have to have a traditional assessment in your course if you don't want to. It can be anywhere you want.
That's cool. Yeah. And then Darren asked if he said he's always had issues with the bullets. Says I run into issues with some bullets being smaller and bigger than the others. Is there best practice to make sure the bullets are the same size?
Best practice that I would give you is turn on up here. If you look at this formatting panel on your home ribbon, turn on paragraph marks and look and see what the font size or formatting or color is of that actual paragraph mark at the end, as well as any spaces that you may have, leading spaces in the beginning or the first character of the bullet. And that's always going to help determine the bullet size within your text block. So that's, I think, important to know.
Yeah, okay. And then I think you covered most of this already, but the layering order conflicts with the reading order. For example, for compliance, a text that a button reveals should come immediately after the button. When I do so, the layering is not in order.
So a couple things to note with that. First, make sure that whenever you are designing for accessibility, within your title options, you turn on Use Web Accessibility Settings. One of the things that that's going to do is you'll notice, generally speaking, when you add a button, sorry, I'm just trying to find one for you here. Here we go. Usually the always on top option gets turned on. If you have your accessibility settings turned on, that won't happen because always on top will change the function of your reading order and layering order. So we don't want to use always on top. But another really wonderful feature that we just recently introduced to Lectora Desktop as well as Lectora Online is that even if an object is not initially shown, it will get read in the order that it's listed in the Title Explorer once it then gets displayed on the page. So that's not something that we supported previously and for a long time. So what's nice is that you can have, two text blocks on the page that aren't shown initially, and then a button that shows the text block, and then that text block will get read. So you don't have to worry about it being initially loaded on the page. So you want to make sure that that just gets layered directly after the button that triggers it to show.
Ah, cool. And I can't remember exactly where this came into play, but Tim asked, can you have more than one AU in a title?
Yep. Yeah, you can have multiple assignable units in a title, of course. The trick is that you cannot have any navigation between them because they get loaded completely separately in your learning management system. So if I were to add another AU here and I were to run an error check or try to publish to SCORM, Lectora would actually yell at me
Okay. And somebody asked, how do I export or submit a file, Excel or Google Sheet, if I don't have an LMS?
So we have some pretty good documentation in our knowledge base or tutorials, and probably even some recorded webinars that I can find and email to you. So
See if I can, okay, I can, yeah, and let me just write that down. Okay, it says the device icons at the top don't really seem to play well when expanding the title Explorer. They begin to overlap each other. Does that affect functionality?
nope, it might just be a resolution thing, but there's no functionality that it will affect.
All right, does holding Alt to move an object ungroup that object from the others, or does it just rearrange it while keeping it grouped?
It keeps them grouped together. It just allows you to move it on the page without ungrouping it, which is a nice feature.
Okay, and then here's another one. I want to sprinkle my test questions throughout the title. What is the best way to do this with a test in its own section?
Well, you can definitely sprinkle them throughout your whole title. One trick might be is if you want all of those to get included in the overall grade of your course, is just to put the whole course inside of a test. Because all a test is just a special chapter that gets graded, and your user has no idea if they're in a test or they're not, depending on how you design it. So that might be an option there. Or you can have all of your test questions throughout the title and then do some variable modification to add up the points of those, and then simply modify the AICC score variable.
And somebody wrote hiding objects just affects the view while programming. It doesn't move hidden objects when publishing, correct?
Correct, yeah. So if I'm just working with these visibility checkboxes in my title explorer, that's not going to affect the outcome of my title. If I change the property, however, of the object to initially hidden, that will. So an object's properties is what determines its behavior and functionality in the course.
Cool. And then we have, I love to save time with actions, and the biggest time saver for me is copying and pasting similar actions. I notice it seems like Lectora doesn't allow copy and pasting of actions from to different answer radio buttons, etc., within questions and quizzes. Is there a workaround for this, or do you have to create them individually for now?
For now, individually, that's a good question, though. Let me look into that, because there's been in the past there have been issues, and even Lectora allowing you to even add an action to a radio button or to a question object, and so it might just be a legacy issue. So let me take a look. That might just be a bug you've let me know about. Thank you.
Cool. And Christine wants to know, is there a shortcut to collapse all pages at once? I'm sure there is, yeah.
There is. Right click, expand all or collapse all. So just make sure you have a page selected.
Ah, yay, Andy.
And just do it at the title level.
So Andy's on. Hi, Andy. And he asks, is there a chance Laura can touch base a little more on multiple AUs in a course? I know it's possible, but I guess I'll never really know what to do with that potential.
Okay, Andy, yeah. So the potential is just that the issue is just you don't want to have anything at the title level that allows you to navigate between AUs, because you're not, that's just a SCORM rule. So as long as you have all of your, I think it's easier if you're using assignable units just to keep all of that at the assignable unit level versus at the title level. And that's really kind of the only trick with that.
And
but what's nice about having multiple AUs is then you can actually set prerequisites.
Absolutely. And then somebody else asked, Jason asked what types of analytics are available from Lectora on assessments. I bet I can probably pull out a blog on that or something. So.
Yeah, so typically depending on your learning management system and how you're publishing your course, that's the types of analytics that are available. So if you're publishing to SCORM, SCORM really only tracks score and completion status, so not started, in progress, or completed, and then your course score. But if you're publishing to our learning management system, CourseMill, for example, then you actually get analytics on everything that your learners did in terms of the questions they selected, what the right answer was, if they got it right or wrong. And if you were publishing to XAPI and pulling from LRS, well, then you have access to really any analytics under the sun. So it's more dependent on your publish to format than Lectora.
Cool, cool. And then in version version 18, Lectora 18, there's a feature to hide. So I think you talked about this already, but there's a feature to hide text box from the screen reader. Does that mean that the screen reader will skip that text box and won't read it?
Yes, it does. So that's something new as well. Typically, all the text on a page will get read, but as long as you have that accessibility setting selected and turned on, there is a hide from screen reader option. So you can turn that off if you turn that on, and that will mean that it will get skipped by the screen reader, almost like empty alt text, but for a text block.
Ah. And then is group under groups now disabled? It says it used to be allowed.
Yeah, groups within groups is a really great way to create an infinite cycle, especially with action groups. It looks like it is not allowed to put a group inside. Oh, you can do it if you drag and drop. How about that?
Ah, there we go.
So it's gone back and forth over the years, just because it could get really buggy. But it seems like proceed with your own caution there.
Yep. And then somebody wrote, Christine wrote, we run into issues with hanging text when importing from PowerPoint. Can we work with the hanging text?
I think I'd probably have to see that. Maybe you could submit that to support and just put my name in the support ticket. I'd be happy to take a look.
Okay, and so I did get a very easy question. I can answer out this one. There is a Lectora Online. Yes, there is lectoraonline.com, and there's plenty of plan options. Yes, we have desktop and Lectora Online, very similar. Okay, next question. Sometimes different bullets in the same text box, not different text boxes are as recently shown by different sizes. How to fix this?
Yeah, so again, I think it's easier to put on your paragraph formatting marks and make sure that all of the text within your text block is using the same font size, and that I found tends to be the culprit. If it's not, please be sure to submit a support ticket to it.
And is it possible to increase the size of the Title Explorer panel? The font is about 6 point. It's tiny, so.
It used to be tinier, actually, Anna, and we moved it up a while ago in V11. It's not, but if you have, depending on your screen resolution, you can change your resolution or use large fonts actually on your actual computer resolution properties, and that should increase the size for you.
All right, cool. I'm just looking to see if there's other questions here in the chat. So I know we're pretty much out of time, but I'm seeing if there's anything else.
Yeah, I know Vicki asked if there's a list of keyboard shortcuts. There is. If you just Google it, it's in our knowledge base. It's also in the help, usually in the appendix. We put all of our keyboard shortcuts. You could probably just search that. But what's nice is if you hover over anything, you'll see the keyboard shortcut for it.
Cool. Then I also just went in a quiz. How do you get numbering to carry onto the next page? If not, how can I get the text to wrap in alignment with the index text? But text wraps number 2. I think there's, I don't know if how do you get the numbering to carry? This is in the chat from Linda. I'm not sure if I understand. How do I get the text to wrap in alignment with the intended text?
Yeah, this might be an issue where I probably help to take a look at your course and we can work on it together.
Yeah, you might want to, have support look at it. And then somebody wrote, I've run into issues when I publish with an object on top of text shifting up. For example, an outlined rectangle over text moves up, so it's not in the same position as when developing. Is there a way to fix that? I think that's what you were demonstrating before, right?
Well, I think that, again, we're probably getting into some issues that might be better managed one-on-one and individually with our support team. And if you want to put my name in the support ticket, happy to take a look as well and see if I can help. And if I can't, we'll make sure we find someone who can.
Well, that's a great idea. Maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll just go over some quick announcements. If that's okay with you, Laura, because we're pretty much out of time. So let me just go here and do share my screen here. And I'll just pull this up here and make sure you can see that as well. All right, so I don't know if you can see my screen, but I'll just talk through it quickly. First, I just want to say thank you so much for coming today. It's always a pleasure coming and seeing everybody all enthusiastic about these tools. And also, I want to sincerely thank you all for voting for us for the Training Magazine Network Choice Awards for authoring tools. Yay, thank you so much. Huge honor to be selected. We're feeling loved, so thank you for that. For those of you who are using a tool that's less awesome than Lectora, I hope you're inspired to try it. You can sign up anytime for a trial or free account at lectoraonline.com and save the date. Dominic, he's coming back to present, write your first AI algorithm in Lectora on February 19th. You'll see an invite coming for that soon. And if you haven't seen his webinars yet, they are amazing. So get ready to see more cool things that he can do. You'll have a lot of fun. And don't miss Laura's next webinar, 10 tips for becoming a Lectora champion. That one will be on March 18th. And as you can see from today's presentation, Laura's fantastic as well, and she will inspire you to become a master of this product. Now, for those of you who are heading up the conference circuit, come visit us on the road. If you are headed to LT in London in a few weeks, we are at stand number L25, and we're giving away an Oculus Go there. So, or if you're heading over to the Training Magazine Network Expo in late February, Dominic is presenting Adaptive Design 101, a crash course in personalized learning. So please look for him. He'll be there presenting, and at the same conference, my teammate Veronica will also be there demonstrating Lectora and Scenario VR as a Choice Authoring Tools Award winner. So yeah, again, you guys, thank you for that. Hey, want to present a Lectora success story at a conference? Let's talk. Contact us at team, T-E-A-M, at Travanis.com so we can help you make it happen. Have a blog idea or webinar you'd like to present? Yeah, I'd like to hear from you too. Speaker slots are still available. So contact me and or just contact team at Travanis.com. We shall discuss. And if you write a blog for us or present for us, you can get a fabulous Hawaiian shirt. Just look at John Blackman over here. It's actually quite nice. And a whole bunch of swag. So until next time, unless I have any other questions here, I'm going to sign off for now. And thank you again so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And we will talk soon. So look for the email tomorrow and we'll get this video over to you. Thanks again. Take care.